All right, here's what he told me. ISIS forces keep traveling from Syria into Iraq along this corridor into, which I'll show you in a minute, into Al-Qaim, which is part of the largest governorate in Iraq. ISIS has a pretty large population just across the border there in Syria. And Iraqi intelligence knows the location of the leadership of ISIS for a lot of their chiefs, and they have conveyed this information repeatedly to the United States. They also have reason to believe that even the ISIS top leader, their caliph al-Baghdadi, they believe he is in this particular region that I'm going to show you. But despite the many attempts to get the United States to go after ISIS in this area, USA won't touch them. They won't do any airstrikes. They won't do anything. And it's really got a lot of the Iraqi politicians up in arms over it, because they know that the ISIS leadership is in this area, and they know the United States has the ability to take them out, but they're not doing it. And he says it looks to him and to others there in Iraq like the United States is providing a safe haven. Now, you may ask why. Why would the United States do this? Let me start by showing you guys some satellite footage, and I'll give you a real quick summary. Okay, we've got Syria over here. This is Iraq. The yellow line is the border between Iraq and Syria. Up here we've got Deir ez-Zor. We're going to come back to that in a moment. Here is, for the sake of Gary Johnson, there's Aleppo up there. This, of course, is the Euphrates River. We zoom in. Here is Al-Qaim, this province area, but they've also got the town. And then across the border, we've got Hajin. Let me show you real quick. From Hajin to Al-Qaim, it's roughly 40 kilometers, which translates into 26 miles. That's about how far away ISIS leadership is, because ISIS is concentrated in Hajin right now, according to my source, including al-Baghdadi. It's not like a huge metropolis or anything, but this is where leadership is hiding. And what is happening is ISIS, when they want to go into Iraq, is they just do a quick little day trip down here and cross through. The border is porous. Let me go to a different map here and show you a little more detail. All right, the white line is the border between Iraq and Syria. We'll come in, whoops, a little too close. This is the Al-Qaim sub-district. We cross over the border, and right here is Hajin. But what I want to draw your attention to is what is right outside of Hajin. Over here we have the Kishma oil field. All right, wherever you find ISIS, oil is nearby. We've got the Kishma oil field. If we follow this, the Euphrates River, if we go along up through here, all of this is oil fields. Lots of oil in this area, and I think we go up to Deir ez-Zor. This whole region, these are all oil fields along through here. And I'll show you on a different map without all that detail. You can see a little bit better. Deir ez-Zor. Whoops. Oil fields all over the place. And there's Hajin and the oil field down there. Now, what happened is this. Let me go back to this map. Here is the Euphrates River. Back in November, Russia, Iran, and Syria got ISIS dislodged and got them on the run. The United States had to back a different group. They were going to lose control of the oil fields. All of this oil was going to fall into the hands of its rightful owners, the Syrians. So what happened was the United States threw its support behind the Kurds, the SDF. In November, the SDF started taking control of the oil fields from ISIS. But it's not that they had to fight them for it. ISIS stayed in place because they were being coordinated by the CIA. They stayed in place and held the oil fields, held the facilities until the Kurds arrived, and then they would leave without a firefight and turn the oil fields over to them so that the oil remained in the hands of the United States. And I'll show you a couple. This one's from November 10th. Syrian Arab Army versus the Kurdish SDF race along Euphrates River to seize last Deir ez-Zor oil fields. And that's what happened. It was literally a race with U.S. military vehicles, a convoy of U.S. military vehicles. I've put that in a video in the past. I showed it to you. They were on the northern side of the border here with the Kurds, and running along the southern side where the Russians, Iranians, and the Syrians, it was a race to see who could get down to Deir ez-Zor first to take control. And the American forces, the SDF, they got there first. And so ISIS handed it over to them. So that's what happened here. This is from November 11th. In the province of Deir ez-Zor on the eastern bank of the Euphrates, SDF took control of Kishma oil field. I also follow a lot on Syrian and Iraqi sites. I have to go to Google Translate and translate to get all this, but it's helpful. Here's another one. This was on December 6th. This is when the SDF continued to move further down the Euphrates, and they took over Hajin, and that's when they got control of the oil resources there. All right, so why is Donald Trump allowing ISIS to remain here in this area? Well, the answer is because that's what the CIA wants. They want it that way. ISIS has been used by the CIA and by the Mossad to control the oil in this region. And they were replaced, the ISIS forces were replaced with the Kurdish SDF. But it appears that the Kurds, and I've talked about this recently, it looks like the Kurds are being tempted away from supporting the United States because they know that they're going to get stabbed in the back. They're moving away from the United States toward forming an alliance with Bashar al-Assad, which would put the oil back into the hands of Syria. So if that happens, the CIA is going to need ISIS to go back in, do what it did before, which is to start killing the Kurds and creating chaos and try and retake control of the region. They need the leadership intact. So you may say, all right, conspiracy theory sounds absurd. Donald Trump hates ISIS. He would never go along with such a plan. Donald Trump's a hero, so he would not go along with this. Well, I say yes, he would. Genie Oil and other Rothschild-related oil and energy companies, they want this territory. They've already got control of Syria's Golan Heights. Benjamin Netanyahu has already given the contracts over to Genie for the exploration in Syria's Golan Heights. So now the Rothschild Syndicate wants the rest of the oil. They want access to the rest of this for their oil corporation.
We're pleased to be joined here today by 6 distinguished witnesses to discuss this important topic. First, Dr. Michael Scherer is an adjunct professor at the Center for Peace and Security Studies at Georgetown University. Dr. Scherer recently concluded a 22-year career with the CIA, where there Dr. Scherer held multiple positions, including senior advisor for the Osama bin Laden department. We're very pleased to have you and honored, sir. Next.
In the Muslim world. And I would certainly, if I was in charge, change many of the policies we have. But it's more important that we in this country become adults. Nothing a person does in his life doesn't have a counter reaction. Does our foreign policy cause this war? Not a chance. The people who attacked us caused this war. Does our foreign policy motivate these people? Absolutely. Sir, if you're going to tell the American people they're fighting a war against a bunch of deranged, nihilist, fanatic extremists, we're going to be fighting a war that it's constantly going to surprise the American people about the costs of what they're doing. If we come to a place where we can have a discussion that says supporting Israel is essential to the U.S. security, supporting Saudi Arabia is important, vital to U.S. security, having U.S. troops in Muslim countries is vital to U.S. security, fine. But also tell the American people that costs come with that. Right now, we've spent 17 years in this war, and the American people still think we're fighting a bunch of long-haired, bearded, goat-eating madmen. And we're at a terrible disadvantage that we impose on ourselves, sir. And I would finish too long a statement by simply saying that we must stop the idiocy of democracy spreading. If you want to fight forever, keep trying to impose women's rights, secularism, the paganism of American culture, contemporary culture, on a religious civilization, sir.
Yeah, and I'll take to
make a comment. Professor Shaw, I've known you over the years, but I have to take sharp disagreement with your position about our support of Israel. I believe it is essential that the United States, for our security, continue to support Israel. I believe that if we back away from Israel or Jordan, for instance, using those countries, Morocco, as examples, that Al-Qaeda will find some other excuse. I mean, we can find any number of reasons. I can tell you during the 1990s, from after Iraq, but between 1995 and 2001, the only time the Americans used force overseas was to defend Muslims against Christians in Bosnia and in Kosovo. And yet the response by al-Qaeda to that was to attack us on September 11th. So I think we make a mistake if we think we can somehow appease al-Qaeda by taking away whatever they're...
Not at all a matter of appeasement, Mr. King, at all. If it was up to me, I'd dump the Israelis tomorrow.
I know you would. I know.
But all I worry about is the continuing preaching of American politicians to the American people that our relationship with the Israelis doesn't cause us to have dead Americans and extraordinary expenses in fighting the Muslim world.
I would just say we would have more dead Americans if we didn't stand by our allies in the Middle East. Well, we'd just be encouraging al-Qaeda to take advantage of us. I think that...
Our allies in the Middle East are mostly totalitarian, sir, and they have been for 50 years.
There are not that many good people in the world. The fact is you have to work with those who work with us. And if I had the choice between dealing with the Israelis and al-Qaeda, I work with Israel. If I had the choice between dealing with Jordan or al-Qaeda, I'd deal with Jordan. And the fact is that you can find any number of excuses why al-Qaeda is going to come after us.
No, sir, you can't.
Yes, I think you can.
No, you can't, sir.
You certainly can.
Osama bin Laden would have been a terrific American politician because he stays on message. There's only one message that comes out of al-Qaeda, and it's...
That's the message they're using now. If it's not that, if we pull out of Israel, if we
you
stop
have
supporting...
to depend...
No, I'm going to say, if we stop supporting Israel, then the message would be...
You have
America was cowardly, America was backed away, they're not going to stand by their allies. You can always... It's the flip side of everything, and I would rather stand with positive elements like Israel and back down.
I'm a bear of little brain, sir, but you got to go with what you go with at the moment. These people are fighting for something substantive, for something religious. And they're not fighting us for what reason do you suppose they're going to come up with? Because we have Hollywood? I would like to fight Hollywood. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, they're not going to fight us because we have women in the workplace. That's an insanity. What they're fighting us about is what we do. And we don't have to stop what we're doing, sir. But we have to realize the cost.
And I think it'd be worse if we stop what we're doing, and that's my point.
Well, that's fine. Tell the American people that.
There's also, of course, what you're asking for, and I think that cost will be a lot greater.
I don't think so, sir.
Well,
it couldn't be worse than it is now.
We honestly disagree.
You know, you're presiding over a bankruptcy. What can be worse? And what has been the goal of Al-Qaeda since it was formed? To bankrupt the United States. Who's winning today, sir? We're done like dinner.
We're winning, and we'll continue to win unless we take the advice of people like you.
Sir, you are exactly wrong. We are losing. 2 U.S. field armies were defeated by men in the field with weapons from the Korean War.
The fact is we have not been successfully attacked since September 11th.
The fact is, sir, we had 2 military defeats overseas.
The fact is we have not been successfully attacked. We have not been successfully attacked since September 11th.
Sir, that's a goofy argument. That is a goofy argument, sir.
I hate to gavel down.
Well, I'm sure you're an expert on goofiness, so I yield back.
I appreciate the gentleman's spirited debate.
Again, I want to come back to understand some of the things you said. Before I do that, and I just want to mention this quickly, I find your position on our alliance with Israel as very troubling. It won't surprise you to tell you that I disagree with you. And you spent 17 years, is that right, or something like that, as a CIA analyst?
Over 20, sir.
Okay, over 20?
Not as an analyst. I ran operations, sir.
Okay. Are there, would you say there's a large number of CIA analysts or employees who agree with your position?
I wouldn't dare to speak for anybody but myself, sir. Well, only a fool would know that our relationship with Israel causes us war with Muslims.
Well, my question is fairly simple. I
Yes,
mean,
sir.
you worked with hundreds of employees.
Yes,
Those,
sir.
You
I
certainly
didn't
had,
work with any fools, sir.
you certainly had conversations with many of them. I'm asking for your opinion of, are there a large number who agree with you on this?
I'm not a McCarthyite, sir. I'm not going to say anything about that to you, sir.
Okay, well, I'm going to take that as non-responsive because it's a fairly simple question, and I don't think
Fairly none of your business about what my conversations with other people are about, sir.
I'm not asking for specifics of those conversations. I'm asking for your opinion of your experience where there are a large number that agreed with you. That's a fairly simple question, hardly intrusive.
Very intrusive from my perspective, sir.
Well, okay, well, you can have your perspective.
Thank you,
I think others can evaluate whether you're being agreeable or disagreeable.
I'm being disagreeable on this because
Yes,
it's none
you
of your
certainly
business,
are.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Now, let me move on then. I would like you to explain very quickly, if you can, what you think the primary motivators are for Islamic jihadism.
First, our support for the Israelis.
Okay, that's your
Second,
number. That's your.
No, there are six.
Okay, put them in order if you could.
Our support for tyranny for over 50 years in the Muslim world.
Okay.
As a trigger, our presence on the Arab Peninsula. Third, I would put the Israelis rising. Fourth, our ability for a long time to get oil at prices that were very much below the market level. Fifth, our presence, military presence in other countries in the Muslim world. And sixth, our abiding willingness to identify as terrorist any Muslim population that one of our allies dislikes, whether it's the Russians or the Chinese.
Okay,
Those six things, sir.
I appreciate that. And let me say, and then I'm going to move on to other witnesses. I was an Air Force officer for 14 years. I have spent significant time with many people from that region, and it is astounding to me that you don't put in the top six what I know to be true, and that is they are motivated, many of them are motivated by their absolute hatred of the United States and what we represent, whether it's freedom, whether it's democracy, whether it's women's rights. There are many of them who are absolutely motivated by that. I know that. I have talked with them.
They hate them, sir.
And I can't imagine that you would not put that in some
They're
way.
not going to die for that, sir.
Oh, they absolutely have.
They have not, sir.
Well,
This war is not, it wouldn't have anything we have in this
Professor,
country. in
you are
their
turning a blind eye to history for you to say that they won't die
Bullshit,
for
sir.
that.
You don't need to call me professor either. You should call me Mike. The reality is no one has blown themselves up because this young lady
Professor,
is in the
you're
right place.
absolutely wrong on that. I'm going to move on now.
Well,
if I
no,
could.
you pulled this up. You said there's millions of people
Professor,
out there.
you're absolutely wrong on that. I'm going to move on if we could.
I wish you would move on.
For the rest of you, I'd like to ask you this in the very brief time that we have. Looking at
What is what? What is what? I'm going to be reading from the book of Isaiah. Isaiah 53. Who hath believed our report? To whom is the arm of the Lord revealed? He shall grow up before him. I'm reading Isaiah in a Jewish country. You believe in Isaiah?
I don't believe in Jesus. Who's dead?
You think that Jesus is in the book of Isaiah?
He's not.
Huh?
We don't believe in all the crap that's coming.
There's a lot of people that do believe. I'm here for the unbelievers. I'm just obeying my God. I'm obeying my God. verse 3. Now this is your book. If you get mad, remember it's in your book. I'm not reading from the New Testament. I'm reading from the Hebrew Scriptures.
This is a Jewish country.
Yes. Does the Jews not believe in Isaiah?
We don't believe in Jesus.
You don't believe in Isaiah?
All the crap is coming out of your mouth.
So you're calling the book of Isaiah a dirty word?
The way you're describing it, yeah.
He is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows. Now, if Yeshua wasn't the book of Isaiah, then why does it bother you so bad? Why does it bother you so bad? If it's not the Messiah, then why are you so mad? It shouldn't bother you. It shouldn't bother you, somebody reading from Isaiah. He is despised and rejected of men. What's wrong with Isaiah? Huh? He is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. Isn't that for sure? He puts up with you people. Stiff-necked. 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 That's you people. Stiff-necked Jews. Stiff-necked Jews. He is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. And we hid as if our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely, hallelujah, surely he hath borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. Yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. Sounds like somebody is prophesying the Lamb of God. I'm just reading from Isaiah. This is your scriptures. Isaiah is your scriptures. You don't like Isaiah? I'm just reading the book of Isaiah. What's wrong with Isaiah? This is the Hebrew Scriptures. This is the Hebrew Scriptures. What are you so mad about? Doesn't your rabbi read Isaiah? What? No, you stop. What's against the law?
It's against the law to preach. Get out of here. Get out of here. It's against the law. The next time the police is going to come.
Get out of my face.
No.
Get out of my face.
It's against the law. Get out of here. Against the law. Get out of here. Don't violate the law. Get out of here. Go away. It's against the law. Go away. It's against the law.
Democracy.
You don't know what
It's
you're
called
talking about. Go back where
democracy.
you came from. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know the law. You don't know how to read.
You deserve it. But God offers you grace. God offers